High atop one of the hills which ring the teeming metropolis of Gotham City, a large house rears its bulk against the dark sky. Outwardly, there's nothing to distinguish this house from many others. But deep in the cavernous basements of this house, in a chamber hewn from the living rock of the mountain, is the strange, dimly lighted, mysteriously secret Bat's Cave, hidden headquarters of America's #1 crime fighter, Batman. Yes, Batman, clad in the somber costume which has struck terror to the heart of many a swaggering denizen of the underworld. Batman, who even now is pondering the plans of a new assault against the forces of crime. A crushing blow against evil in which he will have the valuable aid of his young, two-fisted assistant, Robin the Boy Wonder.
You're listening to the Batman 80th Birthday Special presented by DC On Screen. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Wherever your company goes, your brand should follow. Image 360 makes that happen. Image 360 provides signs for your office, graphics for your fleet, complete displays for trade shows, and more. With decades of experience combined with advanced technology, our high-impact solutions help to get you noticed by quickly informing customers who you are and what you do. Learn more and get a quote at image360signs.com. Image 360, your expert source for comprehensive custom signs and graphic solutions.
Welcome into DC On Screen episode 539. I am your host, David C. Robertson, and this, a mysterious and adventurous figure fighting for righteousness and apprehending the wrongdoer in his lone battle against the evil forces of society, Jason Goss.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Condiment Man.
Condiment King?
Condiment King, that was it. I feel better for not remembering who that was.
Well, that's good, I guess. But yeah, the mysterious and the whole little, that's from Detective 27, their lead up to Batman.
From 39?
Yes, Batman, 1939, and this is DC On Screen episode 539. So
cute.
Just like for Superman's 80th, our episode was number 480. And I didn't plan those things. I don't plan that kind of
stars.
stuff.
Perfect.
It was just nice. It was nicely done.
Yeah.
I can't believe that Batman's been around for 80 years, mostly because I haven't been around for that long.
Mm-hmm.
But,
unfathomable for us, sure. But
I thought we'd have a little episode where we talk about our first interactions with the character, what we like about the character, our favorite versions, our least favorite storylines. Let's talk about how we first came into contact with the character, Jason.
Me? Batman 66.
Really?
Yeah, I think that was my earliest memory of Batman. I don't know if it was the first one, but it was my earliest memory of him. Because it was in reruns in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And they would actually do like 2 hours worth of reruns, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
So was it a 30-minute show or an hour show?
I believe it was a 30-minute show, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so they do a full hour of Batman. And then so you would get to see at the end of the first 30, will Batman escape the blah, 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 and then I was so fucking young. I was like, I don't know. This looks bad. It was literally before I understood like how acting in television worked. I mean, it was just early memories, but I still remember thinking like, oh, this is compelling. But I was invested in the show as though it wasn't a campy, ridiculous show made for adults. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. See, I would see stuff like that, not that specifically, but when I was that young, I would be like, my earliest memory, I would be like, well, he's not going to die unless it's the last episode.
I didn't even have that going on. I really didn't. And I think part of it, though, was because it was just reruns. I don't think they were doing them in order, and it didn't necessarily matter in Batman 66 if they were in order. Mm-hmm. So, there was no serial, there wasn't like a through line with that show. You just kind of had a week-to-week situation.
Yeah. But
the only through lines were when you had guest villains and they came back, as that villain. And even then, sometimes they didn't come back as the same actors or actress. So there wasn't a part of my head that was saying, well, what if this is actually the last one? That didn't hit me at all.
Well, see, the reason that hit me, I don't think it did until I was a big Star Trek fan. I still am. But my parents would have us watch Star Trek every night. And then at some point, like when I was really young, like maybe 3 years old, which predates my Batman experience by about 3 years, we were sitting at home, and I may have been about 4, honestly. But we're sitting at home, and we're flipping through channels or whatever, and Star Trek 3 is on television. And spoiler alert for Star Trek 3, they blow up the freaking Enterprise.
Yeah.
Like they self-destruct that bitch.
Like it is done.
And I didn't, at that point there would have been no other Star Trek movies probably, I don't think. Maybe Star Trek 4 was coming out in theaters, which tracks for them showing Star Trek 3 on television in preparation. But I remember thinking, like, first of all, I was blown away that they made stuff after the show. And I was like, wait, so how is this Star Trek? And they were like, oh, well, that's when they're older. And then I watched them blow up the Enterprise, and I was like, this is the last episode. I just watched the last episode of Star Trek. So, as a kid, whenever there was always that little thing in the back of my mind where, like, I'm watching whoever, Batman or whoever it is, I'm like, I want to see the rest. And my parents would be like, well, they're not going to die. And I'm like, unless this is the last one, like with Star Trek.
All right, a similar experience. And I must have been 3 or 4 when I was watching Batman 66. Maybe I could probably find like syndication records somewhere, but good Lord, that'd involve some research. But I remember I was given like a Superman cape, and I just I had a Superman outfit that I refused to take off. And apparently I watched Superman Quest for Peace because my dad kept the tickets. He was enthralled by he couldn't believe I'd sat still for that long. But yeah, I was completely enthralled with that ridiculous fucking film, and it carried over. So I don't remember seeing Quest for Peace ever, until we reviewed it a couple of years ago. I have no memories of that. But I do remember specifically sitting in certain rooms in my house when I was growing up with certain versions of decorations. My mom would just reorganize things every now and then, but I remember specific variations and sitting there on her bed or the living room or whatever and watching Batman. God, that must have been a while. But I think I've told you this before. One of the I don't remember exactly where in my head I realized, shows end and shows have a production period and stuff like that. I do remember the first time, and it was definitely not the first time it ever occurred to me that a show could end. But I remember the first time I remember watching an episode of something, and halfway through the finale of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I realized, oh God, this is the finale. I was just watching the next episode happily, and then realized, oh, they're done. This is it.
Yeah,
because it just, I don't know, it had that feel to it. So apparently somewhere in there, I'd realized that there was such a thing.
Well, Fresh Prince, we were pretty old, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it wasn't a new concept at all. But it was the first time I realized in the middle of it, oh yeah. So for me, in my memory, it was the first time where I realized that finales have a feel to them. That there's certain beats you've got to hit when you do a finale to a show. I don't remember anything in between. I've got nothing between seeing Superman so young that I don't remember it, and between it must have been 3 or 4 years old, because that's my best guess. That's when my first memory started to be something I can remember now. Seeing Batman 66, I can remember certain scenes. Even I can remember when I went back and rewatched it a couple of years ago and thinking, oh dude, I remember watching that when I was 3. And dude, past that, it was BTAS. I don't think I had anything in between. I'm pretty sure I remember watching the Batman movies at home, VHS style with my parents. But I think it was something in my family, they just kind of watched it and felt, okay. And we took it back the next night and didn't think about it again. It didn't get in my orbit nearly as much as with the animated series. That was something that suddenly I was trying to skip baseball practice. I was not always successfully, unfortunately, trying to skip baseball practice. But yeah, I was really going out of my way to try to make sure I was seated, stereotypically 5 feet in front of the television for that show. Yeah.
With me, my mom would make reference to Batman, and I didn't know what she was talking about. She's like, Batman, and then she'd go do 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 do. But the way she did it, it sounded more like the Twilight Zone intro to me.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
always, oddly enough, like she's referencing like the campiest, brightest version of Batman, and I just thought like Batman, and like heard her doing that, and thought like that was the creepiest noise ever. So
Right.
I would just like think of them like I would think of him synonymously with like creepiness and like darkness.
Right.
So it made total sense when Batman came out, and she was like, "Oh, well, I got to take you to go see Batman." On my 6th birthday, we went to go see the first Batman movie,
And he just creeps down in frame behind somebody, and you're like, "This is perfect.
oh yeah, yeah.
This is everything I ever dreamed of."
Which unfortunately we didn't see that part.
No,
We got there late. We got there as
Oh.
as drunk Bruce and Vicky Vale are trying to get up the stairs at Wayne Manor right before they get down. So
Lord.
yeah, no, actually that's not true. Like it was right before that, but we came into the theater when they're sitting at the long table, and Vicky's like, "Can you pass the salt?" And he's like, he gets up, and she's asking about if she's like, "Do you like eating in here?" And he's like, "Yes." He like looks around. He's like, to tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever been in this room before. I do want to go see that movie again. Sit down and watch that again.
I'm between in the last couple hours we've been recording. I've talked myself into it. I think it's gonna have that.
Well, it's on DC Universe. I've got it on DVD, and it's coming out in theaters again in May. So you have plenty of options.
Yeah, but the big screen. I've never gotten to really experience that.
Yeah, and that's fair. So it wasn't until later when, like, I think my aunt taped it off of HBO for me.
Nice.
So I had that VHS a few months later.
Piracy in its infancy.
What's that?
It's piracy in its infancy right there.
I mean, kind of, but I don't think they saw it that way. She's like, "I pay for it. I'm going to tape it."
No, they definitely saw it that way. There's a disclaimer.
That's funny. Actually, there's not a disclaimer on HBO. Like, because I had the tape for years. Like,
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there were advertisements for a Madonna concert, and then an advertisement for Batman being on HBO that month, and then it went dark, and the Warner Brothers logo came up. There was no piracy disclaimer.
Well, they never said piracy. It was like any attempt to duplicate blah 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 blah. It was that like that. It was either a red or a blue screen, or maybe it was a red then a blue screen. I can't remember.
No, wasn't there.
Oh, I'll be damned.
Wasn't there. Absolutely not.
It was one of my favorite Family Guy jokes. God knows when it was in Family Guy's run, but it was like he tapes a Patriots game, and then later he goes to he puts in the VHS and starts to play it, and then like a swarm of agents storm through the front door and say like, "Did you get the explicit permission of the NFL and Fox to blah 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 blah?" And he's like, "No, I just thought I'd tape," and they just like shoot the ever-living hell out of his television and VHS player and leave the place.
That's funny, but no, yeah, that tape. I wore that tape into the ground, dude. I had that tape playing probably every day for like 2 years.
Yeah,
Like I until Batman the Animated Series came out, probably. Like,
finally had something new to chew on, you know.
but yeah, that it didn't have a disclaimer on that tape.
That's still a little bit surprising.
I mean, it
No,
was
I mean, I guess
1989,
not.
1990, whatever it was. But yeah, so and that's when I actually got to see like Batman lowering, and
Right.
it's not what I heard, man. I heard the bat got him. The bat? Oh man, give me a break.
It was a good moment.
I can't remember how many stories he says. Something straight down. Wasn't no blood in the body. No shit. It was all over the pavement. Anyway, yeah. So that was my first interaction with the character, and then subsequently, like, and dude, it was my 6th birthday. My mom, huge Batman fan, got me like the Batmobile. She went nuts, man. Like Batmobile. I had a Batman figure, a Robin figure. I was like, who the hell's Robin? Robin figure, Riddler figure, Mr. Freeze. I had a Joker. I had a Batwing.
I still have all the little Happy Meals figures that were kind of from that era. I don't know exactly, but I don't remember when I first saw that movie.
Yeah.
And yet when I was in high school, like I was sophomore-ish in high school, so a friend of mine, Ben, that he would interject into a conversation, use it as a non sequitur, but it was perfect. He would just kind of lean into somebody and say, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?"
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what he was talking about, but I still don't remember when I saw that movie the first time.
That's funny. Yeah, I remember that from
It amused me every time he did it. I just don't remember why I knew the reference.
Oof, yeah.
I must have seen him do that 4 or 5 dozen times in my lifetime.
Yep, that's funny. So yeah, with all of that, like they gave like my birthday is relatively close to Christmas. Like it's in September, and so I'm probably like meshing Christmas and birthday because we weren't rich people.
It might have literally been meshed together that year.
And back then it wasn't, but because they're really weird about that. But I have a pretty big family, so back then especially, my mom would like really coordinate a lot of the gift giving. Like she'd be like, okay, I got him this and this and this, you need to get him this and this, and so I don't know exactly who all gave me what, because again I was 6, but dude, I had like so much Batman stuff that year. I had the collectible cards from the movie, and that's how I learned, as I was a big Beetlejuice fan, the animated series. I found out Tim Burton directed Batman and also did Beetlejuice, and that Batman was Beetlejuice, and I was like, holy shit, my world is opening.
I love the animated series. I remember knowing that I had seen the movie, and I still don't remember exactly when I saw that stuff. I am not sure when my earliest Tim Burton memories begin.
Mine began with Batman and quickly branched into Beetlejuice and other things.
It was a great cartoon, though.
It was. I have it all on DVD.
Nice.
Right next to the movie.
Right, naturally.
I'm sick. But yeah, so shortly after that, like, they got me into, like, they were heavily airing the Adam West, the 66 series. I think it was on TBS. My grandparents, we didn't have a VCR. My grandparents had cable and a VCR. We didn't have either. And they would tape these blocks, these kids blocks on like TBS or whatever, and it was like Batman, and then it would be like just huge, it's like an hour-long block of Batman and like an hour-long block of like the Three Stooges or something. And I just remember like I had tapes with Batman 66 and the Three Stooges, and I was a kid, so I was like, this is great. I have an hour.
That sounds awesome.
I have I have an hour of serious stuff and then an hour of comedy.
Still not in on the joke yet. Yeah,
not quite. I don't think. But I got on a real kick.
I feel you, man.
The weird thing is like I got on a super weird kick of like I was obsessed with being a purist. Like I could enjoy all the different versions of Batman they had. But I remember being in school and someone had, and this was around 92 when the animated series came out, because they had the Fox Kids magazine, and there was an article, and the kid was a jackass, wouldn't let me see the magazine, up close. Like I didn't even know there was a magazine for a minute, and then I realized there was because this kid had it, but wouldn't let me see it up close, wouldn't let me hold it, but just kind of angled the page at me from afar and let me see that there was an article that had pictures of Batman through the ages, all the different versions of Batman that had existed. And I caught a glimpse of some of the 1940s serial stuff and some of the first drawings of Batman. And, I draw. I've always drawn as long as I can remember. And I've been over here drawing the Adam West Batman because I'm like, well, I only want to draw the first Batman, the original Batman. I was just stuck in that mode. And then I was like, wait, that shit's not the first? So, like, but, we don't have the internet at that point. It's like 91, 92.
I mean, it was available. I was fucking with the internet at that point, but it was not what it is today.
I said we didn't have the internet at that point.
Yeah. It was not.
But even when we got the internet a few years later, like, they didn't have, you couldn't look up stuff like you can now. Like, because when we finally got the internet, I was like, oh, good, I'll finally be able to, like, find out all the stuff about the old Batman stuff. Like, no, that shit wasn't there.
No. You had to go to, like, Alta Vista or fucking Netscape Navigator or something. And just pray within the next 200 results you could find something that said, like, Batman66universe.com or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So...
or .net, more likely.
I pretty much got my Batman history piecemeal, like... And it was like, I remember like not knowing anything was coming out. Batman Returns, a freaking TV advertisement for Batman Returns came on while I was watching TV. And it was like, while the bat's away, the cat will play. And I was so excited. Mm-hmm. I like jumped up out of my chair, ran out, started screaming at my mother, Batman's coming back. They're doing Batman Returns. Batman's Catwoman. They got a penguin and a Catwoman. I was so excited. And then shortly thereafter, they announced Batman the Animated Series, and I was so excited. Like, 92 was like my year. Like, and I didn't get to see Batman Returns in the theater. I saw it later when it came out on VHS, but I knew it was there. We just didn't get out to it. But that was okay because Batman Returns came out, and then like 2 months later, Batman the Animated Series came out, and I was just in heaven.
You had something to digest there.
Yeah, Batman Returns was just everything, and Batman the Animated Series was just everything, and I was confused at why. Like, I was like, why does Batman Returns and Batman the Animated Series have Penguin with flipper hands? He didn't have flipper hands in 1966, but Batman the Animated Series for so long was just my definitive take on the character, and probably still is.
I mean, we were 8-ish. We were still like the idea of like multiple divergent continuities. We were still working with that. We're still developing that idea.
Yeah, and also I want to say before that even happened, and I'm pretty sure it happened before animated series came out. It was probably in response to the Batmania that happened in '89. Suddenly you would like go out to places like Kmart and Walmart, and you would see they had VHS copies of things, and that was Batman related, and they had, and I still have it too, a VHS of the 1949 serial, and I was like, holy shit, this is like old school Batman and Robin, hell yeah. For a while, if you dig around in my mom's house, you can find plenty of drawings from that age where like I'm only drawing those, like who was it? I can't remember if it was Lewis Wilson or Lowry, but I'm only drawing the 49 Batman and Robin. Like, Robin's got curly hair, it's a whole thing.
Right.
So yeah, I had that playing on a loop. And I remember I even watched it when I lived with you. I had thrown it on the DVD set.
Oh, yeah.
You came in and you were like, what the hell is this?
Oh, I knew what it was.
Well, I don't know why you said, what the hell is this?
I knew what I was looking at. I was just thinking, I remember thinking, like, you have like 4,000 DVDs. Why is this what you're watching?
Because black and white Batman are on top of a train fighting bad guys. Shut up, Jason.
I know. I get the gist of it. I get it.
Now they're fighting diamond thieves in an alley.
Yeah. And I mean, like, Party City level costumes. It was so bad.
Oh, Party City's, those costumes had nothing on Party City at this point.
At this point, yeah. You can get an admirable Hulk compared to what they were wearing.
And I've read that the guy playing Batman in that 49 serial was in such bad shape that, like, in between takes when they were doing like the fighting scenes, they had to wheel in like an oxygen tank.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. They probably had wheeled in like an oxygen tank and like 3 fingers of gin and half a pack of Pall Malls and said, "All right, you ready to go, buddy? All right, we'll see you in 10."
That would be great. Yeah, it was Robert Lowry.
Lowry? Yeah, Lowry sounded right.
Yeah, Lewis Wilson was from 49 then. Sorry, 43.
All right, Lowry, we got to do that shot over again. We forgot you had a cigarette in your mouth. Wasn't in the previous take.
He's like, it's 1949. Batman can smoke.
Well, I don't want to waste it. Robin, finish it for him so we can get on with this take.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I've been pretty steeped for quite a while. And I think my first...
I know BTAS was a huge part of me growing up. I mean, like I said, I carved out time for it as much as you could. Like, it was one of those shows where when I get grounded, it was like, oh God, that means I can't watch Batman. Like, it was one of the first things that occurred to me. But I think I came to it through an entirely different thing. Like, I don't know what happened as far as, like, for me and some of these characters, when I was so young that I still kind of barely remember it, I was obsessed with them. And then at the same time, it was like I had a huge Ghostbusters thing. And then it was an obsession. And then I don't quite remember what was going on. And then suddenly it was huge for me again. But I think there was like a Looney Tunes backdoor thing for me. Where for me, I kind of went, I got really into, like, I would wake up super early in the morning. Because, like, you remember like from 5 to 7 in the morning, sometimes you could find Looney Tunes on. Mm-hmm. And especially before, like, the normal Saturday morning cartoon block, if you woke up at, like, 4 or 5 in the morning, you could watch a couple hours of Looney Tunes. Or, hell, if you woke up early enough, you could watch, like, Betty Boop. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah. You could find that stuff if you woke up early enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I would get up early enough to watch that and, go drink half a gallon of sweet tea and fucking stay up and watch Looney Tunes, and I was really into it. And then backdoor style, like WB started airing stuff like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons, and I think like I want to say Gargoyles before that.
Yeah, that was a thing.
You know
who did Gargoyles?
Who's that?
I believe
I know
that
there were
was,
a lot of
I believe,
voices that I knew.
No, I don't mean the voices. I mean, I believe that was Greg Wiseman, the guy that does Young Justice now.
Nice. I would not be surprised. But in my memory, and come on, man, it's nearly 30 years. I don't know. But in my memory, there was a lot of backdoor stuff like that where I was kind of already watching stuff in that time frame and in that vein. And then ran across Batman the Animated Series and thought, oh, hell, yeah, this is it.
I mean,
and I still watch the hell out of all of the rest of that. Like, I still love Animaniacs, frankly. We watched it a few years ago. And even as an adult, 70% of that material stands up. It really does.
I mean, even predating Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, and we know that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini came from that. And
yeah,
I don't know if you remember, but there's a great one of my favorite episode of Tiny Toons had Plucky playing Bat Duck, and I don't remember
remember that.
I think the pig's name was Hampton, but he was the Batman's Bat Duck's trusty sidekick Decoy. And he was in a Robin costume, except instead of an R, there was like a giant target on his chest.
I think I've seen that picture since, but I don't remember the episode. Honestly, from Tiny Toons, I remember really enjoying it, but like so many people, the only thing we remember is down the hole or whatever.
Yeah. I remember quite a bit from Tiny Toons.
I don't. I really don't.
They did the Citizen Kane send-up. I remember that one pretty well.
I remember thinking that it was stuff that was actually like written in a way where I was supposed to be able to grasp it, but I remember thinking there's a lot more going on here than I understand.
Yeah, here's a weird thing. When I was a kid, we were raised on stuff like Dick Van Dyke and the Andy Griffith Show and I Love Lucy. So I
watch Nick at Night for at least 2 hours every fucking night.
Right. So it was nothing to me as a kid to walk into a video store and decide, because I'd heard good things, to rent Citizen Kane.
Oh yeah, I did that.
So when I'm watching Tiny Toons and they're doing Maximilian standing up there with a giant picture of himself, I'm like, oh, they're doing Citizen Kane. Dope. Okay, cool.
I'm not sure I got it. I don't remember it well enough. I do remember like being 13 years old and renting Citizen Kane and kind of getting a weird look from my mom. Like, oh, I want to watch it. I want to try this. Okay. And watching it, thinking, there's a lot going on here I don't understand.
Yeah.
I understand that this is a picture that is more complete than my 13 or 12-year-old or whatever the hell brain can. I don't have the back catalog to grasp this at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie, man. I was a kid. I saw a fat guy on a cover smiling in front of a giant picture of himself. I thought it was a comedy. It was not a comedy.
No, it was not. I'm not sure there's a joke in the entire thing.
Oh, there is. It is a funny movie at times. Like, it is dark humor. It's gallows humor, man. Like,
that's the other thing about it, though. It's been that same 20 years since I've watched that movie.
Yeah, it's solid, man. I love Citizen Kane.
I got nothing against it. Like every time I see it on some like world's best films of all time, and it's up there, I'm like, okay, sure, I've got no problem with that. But I don't pretend to completely understand it.
It's been too long. You need to watch it again. Just sit down. Sit down. One day. Wait until your wife and your kid is out of town or something. Sit down and watch Citizen Kane, and then watch The Master.
Nice. That's actually a good call.
And just
that's actually a good call.
Listen to the language, man. The language of both of those movies are fantastic.
I'm sure. I still like. I remember it well enough that I get a lot of why it gets its praise.
Mm-hmm.
Again, nothing against it. It's been so damn long, and I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
Same time, it's amazing what you catch at the right time in your life. Like a movie that got almost no praise and is largely forgotten is Where the Buffalo Roam.
Mm-hmm.
And I've probably watched it 14 times.
I mean, that's not a bad movie.
It's a great movie. I love that movie. I mean, and there's a moment in the middle of it where it's like Bill Murray playing Hunter S. Thompson singing the Beatles, and I was like, I can die now. That's my life completely come around.
Not that both versions aren't completely valid, but I would go so far as to say that Where the Buffalo Roam might be a better movie than Fear and Loathing.
It might be. Yeah, again, like you said, if I wouldn't argue with either of those opinions, but anyway.
Yeah, we need to talk about Batman.
Yeah.
Any idea what your first Batman comic was?
No, genuinely no idea. Because I know I had some stuff growing up, but it did not survive. Like I had toys that survived, but papers, no, gone.
I just hit my microphone. I apologize. Yeah, my first Batman comic, I have it. It's in the basement. It's in with my comics. January 1992's Batman 473, The Idiot Root Part 3, and I actually had, like, I read it so much, and that's Norm Breyfogle artwork, Peter Milligan writing. I read that issue so much that the cover came off. I don't know where the cover is. But I do have the coverless version on bag and board in the basement, and I rebought the issue with a cover, a pristine copy, and have it hanging on my wall in my office.
See, that's nice. Because
it's my first. And I did buy the other parts of the series so I could read the whole storyline.
Yeah.
But for years, I only had part 3. Because that's what they saw at Walmart when they decided to give me a stack of comics for Christmas.
I'm actually pretty thankful that I wasn't really reading comics at that age.
Yeah.
Because it's tortuous, you know? Like, you for the most part, you were, like you said, that was what was on the grocery store shelf, and your mom let you buy it that day.
Well, no, this was, my aunt gave them to me for Christmas. I didn't ask for any of them. She literally just gave me a stack of comics in a box. It was Batman 473, and it was a random issue of Superman, and I don't remember the actual issue number, but I remember Superman was only in one panel of the whole book, and everybody else was either Lois, Clark as Clark, and even though Clark and Lois were engaged, apparently, she didn't know he was Superman. I think that's the thing I remember. And then, like, the rest of the issue dealt with Jimmy Olsen and Lana Lang getting down or supervillains. It was real weird and real boring for a kid. And I got, like, several Star Trek comics, some by Michael Jan Freeman, which, that's a good guy there.
It actually sounds like what they're doing in, like, Action Comics right now.
Yeah.
Which I'm actually really enjoying, but they the Bendis era is... In Action Comics, it's largely about Clark Kent and a lot of things that are happening that it's been like Superman appears in every issue, but he's not the focus point. Whereas in Superman, it's really about Superman.
Yeah. But yeah, it wouldn't be until Nightfall that I really got into the comics. And to my great pleasure, Norm Breyfogle was still involved in at least some of that.
See, the way I acquired books in general when I was young was I really enjoyed it when the book fair came through, because I could just like check mark a lot of stuff like when we were at school and the book fair, and check mark a lot of stuff and get all the books I wanted, and that was good because I really enjoyed reading, but I would read books, not comic books. I cannot imagine, and I'm really glad. Like when I would go to a friend's house, and I specifically remember going over and finding The Death of Superman at a friend's house, and like as soon as that dude fell asleep, I went over and grabbed it and started reading.
Yeah, and then wound up in the bathroom, no less.
Why not?
That's what you told me.
Probably.
That's what you said on our Superman 80th anniversary special.
I don't doubt that. I don't remember that now, but...
You said the light was keeping them up, so you wound up taking the book into the bathroom and reading.
Yes. Yeah, that was true. That was true. You can get away with, private time in the bathroom. But, yeah, like, short of, like, squirreling away with stuff here and there, I didn't read a lot of it. Like, I would watch everything that I could get my hands on, but I certainly didn't have any kind of collection. Really until I was an adult and could actually, like, not have to beg my mom at a supermarket to have that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a fight. I mean, it just would have been. Like, every week would have been like, I just bought you one last week. I'm like, yeah, but they come out every... But there's this and that. Like, I can just imagine that conversation with a mom, and it would have gone very poorly on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
And then on top of that, getting it in such a, like, we didn't have anything in the area. Like, getting it at a supermarket, I have a pull list at a comic book store right now, and I still don't get everything I order every time because stuff will literally be like crushed by a forklift and thrown away or shipped to some other place. Like, I cannot imagine trying to keep up with the storyline from that little spinny supermarket thingy.
Yeah, it was tough.
It would have been frustrating.
Like, how it wound up for me, like, we would go to either Family Mart or Food World, and usually, like, at this point, I was also into X-Men. I was into X-Men and Batman and Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Oh, yeah. I mean, the X-Men, the animated series, was also big around that time. Like, and it was great. Great. So, love that thing.
I would usually have to try to, like, finagle a comic book, and basically I would choose based on the artwork. Like, because I knew I couldn't get two. And then once Wizard Magazine started coming in, it was hell. It was like, well, shit. These are like, $4.99 or whatever. It's like 2 comic books. But yeah, like that. Like, I was at Food World when I got Batman 497. That was Nightfall number 11. I picked that up and said, "Holy shit! They just broke Batman's back." Thankfully, my mom said, "Okay, that's fine." I had saved up birthday money and all sorts of other shit and wound up going to a comic book shop, Capital City Comics over here in Montgomery, which I'm not in Montgomery right now, but that guy's still around.
Over yonder.
And wound up buying the rest of the Nightfall line just so I could, like, figure out what the hell was going on. So Nightfall is responsible for me actually going into a comic book shop for the first time.
Nice.
So yeah, like, but as far as like the supermarket thing, like, yeah, it would be like between Batman, Detective Comics, just some Batman comic. Sometimes it would be a Star Trek book, usually the ones based on the original series, and either X-Men Adventures or X-Men Classic. X-Men Adventures was them specifically adapting the animated series episodes, but I really liked the artwork. Like, so if I wanted to, like, take that home and, like, figure out how that guy was drawn, I'd be like, I just saw this episode, but I want this one.
Right.
But classic X-Men usually had John Romita Jr. from the 80s artwork. So that was usually hard to pass up. But, every couple of weeks I could usually talk them into getting me one of those.
God, it's amazing. Like, for, like, $20 a month at this point, after DC gets up and booted, I mean, you can have everything it's ever been on a shelf between both companies at your disposal. Just amazing.
Isn't that sick?
In just our lifetimes, what's happened.
So, I think it's I know we're kind of going off on a lot of different things, but to be honest, Batman is what got me into comic books and got me into superheroes. So, while my first comic book may have been a Ghostbusters comic that was thusly thrown away because there was something that looked too much like Satan in it. Yeah. My comic book interest is really rooted in Batman in a way that, if it wasn't for Batman, I wouldn't have even tried X-Men. If it was, I just wouldn't have. Like, nice. I wouldn't have been into superheroes. Batman got me into superheroes. And
I'm not sure. I think I've always been interested in the extraordinary, and these characters are just really well refined versions of the supernatural in general. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of like I love looking up stories of like Chupacabra and Bigfoot and stuff. It's all complete bullshit, but it's fascinating and hilarious to me. Like UFO stories, ghost stories, all that. Like I'm always happy to hear it. I have not depending on which topic in that paranormal realm you're asking me about, almost nothing or absolutely nothing as far as belief goes, but I'm always fascinated to hear the story. But with these guys, it's just versions of supernatural that are, I don't have to believe them. They're just good because they're good. Like they're enjoyable because they're worth hearing about. Like there are our eras and definitely our generation's version of like the Greek demigods, and oh man, just rich.
Yep. So what would you say is your favorite version of Batman?
Yeah. I'll stick with what we've said several times before. Animated series.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm gonna lie as well. Like or at the very least, it's some amalgamation of, like I feel like it's kind of the same, but not really. Like I think my favorite version of Batman is probably Justice League and Justice League Unlimited Batman.
If you're getting specific.
If I'm getting specific, because I feel like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited Batman is a lot closer to the paradigm set by Grant Morrison in the JLA run of 97. Like,
Fair.
he is, the future version of BTAS Batman. He's gotten so good at his craft that he kind of is Bat God. Where instead of Bane punches him and he falls across, across the room, and he's like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I feel like JLA Batman is the or Justice League Batman is the guy who would see a machine gun shooting and be able to stay exactly one toe's worth ahead of every bullet because he's just tracking that guy's movements.
Right.
Justice League Batman is the guy who, would trick Wally West into letting him sacrifice himself. You know what I mean? He saves Wally and he's like, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Like, oh my God, you're dying. Oh, what?
Yeah.
So it's the same character in universe, but he's an older version of the character. That version of the character who would sit with Ace as she's dying.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the strongest scenes in the entire run.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's my favorite version of the character from the comics is the Morrison JLA version, where you can play with a lot of the darker tones and stuff in the Batman books, and that's fine and good. I always really loved the idea. I loved his interactions with the Justice League, and specifically with characters like Kyle Rayner and Wally West, who are in awe of him and terrified of him, even though they're clearly more powerful than he is.
Yeah.
And I would say that even tracks over to the Mark Waid. Mark Waid writes a hell of a Batman. And the Tower of Babel, man. I love that. He's just so ahead of the curve, except, that's exactly what his downfall is. That is Batman's greatest weakness, is being so prepared that he actually, alienates everyone else.
Right.
But then to subsequently write that whole segment, that whole storyline, I don't remember what that one was called, where the fairy tales turns out they were real and they actually come back to the real world, and
that one's metal.
No, that's not metal. This is
sure?
Yeah, the fairy.
That is for sure the premise.
Well, oh, that's weird. Yeah, Mark Waid wrote a storyline in JLA right after Tower of Babel, where fairy tales were unleashed upon the world, and the Justice League, they were having trouble figuring out what the hell was going on, and they'd already kicked Batman out, and then Batman's over here
no, yeah, no, that's not the premise. I know what you're going for, but it was different. In Metal, it wasn't a fairy tale. It was the nightmare version. Every person's version of, oh my God, what if Bruce Wayne had grown up this way?
Yeah. No, I'm talking about Snow White and all that shit.
Yeah.
Actual fairy tales. Turns out they were real and they were being held in a pocket dimension inside of a book or something. The Justice League couldn't figure it out, and then as they're trying desperately to figure it out, you get a psst, and then I think Flash or Plastic Man or somebody walks over into a dark corner, and Batman's there with a copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales. He's like, all right, this is the key. See you later.
Yeah.
It's that Morrison and Waid did Batman in a way that was just James Bond and Paul Dini's Batman all in one that I really appreciated.
Right. The superpower of predictability and foresight.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do think the JLU version is my favorite version in a lot of ways.
That's solid. I mean, we grew up with those versions. It's going to be hard for those not to be top of our list. First thing you think about favorite versions.
Yeah. Do you have a least favorite version?
A least favorite? God, that is a different question entirely.
Well, it's the opposite.
Well, that's why it's a different question. You hit that right on the head.
Uh-huh.
I can't come up with a good answer off the top of my head.
I have an answer for it, but I don't want to beat a dead horse or a horse that we've previously beaten. Given Dark Knight,
George Clooney comes to mind.
I think Dark Knight Rises. I think probably the Nolan Batman.
Oh yeah, we have beaten that horse, but it's fair.
And I say that over Clooney only because Clooney didn't stop being Batman.
That was the ultimate concern for us. Was like he just shut down the operation for a while.
Yeah, and
The one thing you can't do if you're a Batman.
I mean, you could say like 8 years. All right. Well, even Dark Knight Returns, like the quintessential Batman story, the thing that everybody cites as pure genius that you have to read. Dark Knight Returns. Even then, he had quit for some time and then had to come back, just like in Dark Knight Rises. But in Dark Knight Rises, he goes away a second and final time. At the very end of that movie, he quits being Batman.
And he had a better reason in Dark Knight Returns.
He had a better reason in Dark Knight Returns. And he didn't stop either. He just stopped being quote-unquote Batman for a minute. Like, because, if you read the rest of Frank Miller's trilogy, he comes back.
He goes hard.
He comes back, and he comes back
goes
big.
hard into Batman.
So,
yeah.
I think that is the reason. And I think a
Frank
lot of people...
Miller's is maybe my least favorite artwork for Batman.
I've seen worse. I've seen things that I just, I can't abide.
That's fair.
But yeah, I think Nolan's Batman is, look, I've got at least 3 Christian Bale Batman action figures. I'm not turning my back on the Nolan stuff completely. I've got a Heath Ledger Joker.
There's a lot of good there
as well. There is a lot of good there, but I think ultimately that version of Batman is the least satisfying for me. Just because of the treatment of the Batman persona as a crutch and a hurdle for Bruce to overcome, that is always going to leave a bad taste in my mouth.
I mean, we have talked about this a lot, but in summary, for me, only because of how it ended. But when The Dark Knight came out, that was the best Batman thing I'd ever seen.
Still might be the best Batman thing I've ever seen.
It was phenomenal. That movie was exhilarating. There were people standing up, clapping in the middle of the movie. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still don't know if I've ever seen anything really like it.
Yeah, there was a lot of potential there. Although some of that has been kind of sullied for me just because I'm seeing, after seeing the entire trilogy and seeing what Nolan and his writers and everybody was talking about, I'm like, yeah, I can see how they're going in that direction. In right. Dark Knight, it's like, yep, they were totally setting it up for that, for Bruce to yeah. All right. Do you have a favorite Batman storyline in the comics? Not that either one of us have read everything.
No.
I like to think we've read the essentials at least.
Yeah, like the essentials.
Though I might try to go back and DC Universe, baby.
That's the reason I hate questions like these. And unless I've gone back and looked at stuff, I have the recency effect problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, it was good. It was good recently, and
well, that's okay too, man. I mean, see, I have the opposite. I don't remember things that just happened, but I remember oh yeah, I'll just throw out Batman Year One anytime. Oh yeah, Year One, shit,
yeah,
it's great. Nightfall doesn't hold up as well, that. But it does. It always will hold a special place in my heart, just like the death of Superman.
Yeah. Something that was actually in there that was deeply affecting and fantastic. Maybe Court of Owls.
Interesting. I mean, that was solid. It didn't make me feel the same as some of those older ones. Like Long Halloween, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, Year One.
All brutal and wonderful in their own ways.
Killing Joke, Dark Knight Returns.
Well, I was trying to think of something that was that had a numbered issue.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess, I don't know. No Man's Land, I kind of, was a cool concept, but it went on too long.
A refined version of that is pretty goddamn good.
Yeah.
But you're right. It did go on for a while. It's one of the things I'm excited about with Gotham is they're getting to do that.
Yeah. Bruce Wayne Murderer was a pretty good story overall. I think it was Vesper Fairchild was found murdered in his house, and there's a great bit that I don't have it on hand. If I find it, I might slip it into the edit. But I was actually just going through a bunch of boxes and stuff that I had in my closet that I just needed to clean out stuff, And I found a napkin that I've probably had. Well, I can tell you that at least. I found a napkin, though, that I wrote down this Batman speech And I was like, I remember reading it. It was at my grandmother at my grandmother's table. It was from the Bruce Wayne Fugitive storyline. It was starting that storyline, I think. It was Batman 600, and Bruce broke out of prison, or somebody broke him out of prison, and he has this fantastic speech about how like he's not shackled by Bruce Wayne anymore. And I wrote that speech down on a napkin so I could just keep it with me and use it as a bookmark. And I just found that napkin the other day.
Nice.
And I was just like, wrote it in a ballpoint pen, man.
Just found that napkin. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, okay. I have had that napkin since 2002.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's solid.
The Bruce Wayne fugitive, Bruce Wayne murderer, and Bruce Wayne fugitive storyline was pretty solid.
That is solid.
That was
I
Ed
feel
Brubaker.
Like I can name like several things that I've enjoyed recently, and for some reason, if I go back, all I end up doing is kind of hitting the classics.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of having trouble doing like a deep dive of oh man, this one that's everyone forgot, blah blah blah. I mean, like whatever happened to the Cape Crusader or Arkham Asylum are kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
If I go back and try to think of something it's been a minute that I really enjoyed,
yeah,
those come to mind. Other than that, some of the stuff recently, like I've mentioned Metal several times.
Oh yeah, you have.
The Snyder run right now is, God, Batman and Jarro is just a delight.
Yeah, Death of the Family.
Death of the Family was phenomenal.
Death in the
White
Family
Knight was good.
I haven't read White Knight yet. Oh, I want to.
It was good.
Oh,
it was a lot of fun.
Winnick's story. Under the Red Hood.
Oh yeah.
That's
also
solid.
Great. Paired with Black Mirror, great.
Hush is good.
Yeah.
Morrison's Dick Grayson
Artwork
and Damian
in
Wayne.
Hush, fucking untouchable. What?
Morrison's Batman and Robin book, where it was Dick as Batman and Damian as Robin. That's fantastic.
Never read that part.
Give it a shot.
I can soon when all of this is available.
I think it probably already is on DC Universe.
It
honestly.
might be. Speaking of which, the Injustice run with Batman, also good.
Mm-hmm. Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth. That's Mother's Milk.
Yeah. That one's solid. Hell, it's as many titles I can think of right now off the top of my head.
You know, I keep hearing I've got to read it, and I probably will very soon. Batman Earth 1 by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. I keep being told I need to read that, and I haven't done it yet.
I mean, you probably do just based on who was involved in that book.
Right?
Yeah, that feels like an add it to your more immediate to-do list kind of thing. Yeah, but yeah, I haven't done it either.
Yeah, man. I would love to read Batman.
The current like Max Batman series.
The what?
A lot of fun. There's a Batman and the Max crossover.
Oh, okay. I need to read all of the Max anyway. I never got around to that. I read the first few issues and thought, oh, that's a really cool storyline. And then it was too expensive to collect it all, and I never did.
It was a fun premise. Like it was. Speaking of which, Christopher White sent me the first of these, and did the second series and enjoyed it too. But like Batman and Ninja Turtles, it was a great read.
Yeah.
But Batman and the Max, they did. It's like they end up on an operating table and their minds get melded, and suddenly he's in the what do you call it? It's not the Expanse. It's something like that. But anyway, they're in that like mental space that Max has.
Mm-hmm.
And issue by issue, they're kind of like envisioning different Batman villains. Trippy, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some Batman, guys. I'm gonna get deeper in. Oh, DC Universe, you magnificent bastard.
Yeah. There's plenty.
There is. Oh man. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we sign off?
No.
All right. Well, guys, it's been fun talking about Batman and the last or our experiences with the character. And I know we didn't really scratch the surface on a lot of the old 50s and 60s stuff. And believe me, I've read a lot of that. Batman and Robin going to visit that professor whose name I can't remember, and they get sent back in time in those chairs. And all those weird 50s issues where it was all aliens and shit.
Comics Code, we're out of ideas. Let's get out there stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, I just love so many versions of this character, and I would love to, again, if you haven't done it, I deeply recommend going to check out Batman the Brave and the Bold, because like the last episode of that series is maybe one of the most poignant Batman things ever. I in fact watched the last episode first, and got into that series through there because stupid final episode made me cry.
Yeah. It's weird too because for half the episode you're wondering what's going on, and then it pays off hard.
Yeah. So yeah, Batman the Animated Series is probably going to be our biggest recommendation, and his subsequent series in that line, which, if you don't know, Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, you can count Static Shock, that's in canon. Mm-hmm. Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, Zeta Project, which isn't incredibly necessary.
It's still canon, damn it.
Well, Zeta Project does that thing where they have the backdoor pilot on Batman Beyond, and they kind of end it with Zeta's on the run, and then they do 2 seasons of a show and cancel it, and they end it with Zeta's on the run, and you're like, well, I just did 2 seasons for it to end the same way it did in that Batman Beyond episode.
Yeah, that feels right.
So yeah, Justice League.
That felt right.
Justice League Unlimited. And Justice League Unlimited Epilogue is maybe one of the greatest Batman stories.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah. And of course, Uncut, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, all of that stuff's in there. If you want a full list of all the things you need to watch in order, just message me. I'm sure you can find other people doing it, but I just sent a list to my sister-in-law. She's borrowing all of my DVDs. She lives in Japan, so she can't get DC Universe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That'll keep her occupied for a while.
Yeah. My mother-in-law just went over there to visit her, so she took just a case of my DVDs over there.
Nice.
Yeah, I got her to watch Young Justice, and that was, she loved that, so.
That's good.
The first 2 seasons anyway. Anywho.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the third.
If this was your first episode, we are on Patreon, patreon.com/DCOnScreen. We do extra content, $5 a month. If you want to do that, or if you just want to throw us $1 a month, you can not get extra content, but support us. I don't know why you would do any of that if this was your first time. But I hope you do stay around with us on the free version of the show. And I hope that we've given you some recommendations and some... or at the very least, a good insight into who we are and why we were so into Batman and subsequently DC. Because I know your entry point to DC was Superman, but mine was Batman. And good Lord,
there's still combined 160 something years to digest between those two characters.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep some DC on your screen and some Batman on your page.
Hold on. It feels like we should do the whole, until next time. All right, wait. Is it same bat time?
Well, we never actually came up with a time that we actually dropped this podcast. So, same bat RSS feed, same bat inconsistency.
Perfect.
I think we usually average more episodes a week than we do not. So, I think it's usually probably we average 2 episodes a week somehow.
Yeah.
So don't worry about showing up and not seeing anything new from us. I can't believe these guys. It's more like, damn it, they dropped another thing?
We used to average 4-ish a week until we had to stop doing the review every episode. And then now I still think we average 1 point something minimum.
Yeah, probably. All right. Bye, y'all.
Breast milk science. It's a thing. And it's our thing. We're ByHeart. We're an infant formula company on a mission to get a lot closer to the most super food on the planet, breast milk. Our patented protein blend has more of the important and most abundant proteins found in breast milk. We're the first and only U.S.-made formula to use organic, grass-fed whole milk, not skim. We make our formula in our own factories in Iowa, Oregon, and Pennsylvania, using a small batch manufacturing process that works to preserve the integrity of our ingredients. We ran the largest clinical trial by a new infant formula company in 25 years and clinically proved benefits like easier digestion, less gas, and softer poops versus a leading infant formula. We were the first infant formula company to earn the Clean Label Project Purity Award. And while we've put a lot into ByHeart, there's a long list of things you won't see on our ingredient list, like no corn syrup, no maltodextrin, no GMO ingredients, no soy, no palm oil. ByHeart, a better formula for formula. Learn more at byheart.com.